Hey, there's Isaac.
Taylor.
And Zach.
And we're Hanson.
And you're listening to ABC Newcastle.
Hi, Grant.
How are you?
Good. We'll do a quick roll call. We've got Isaac.
Yes, this is Isaac right here.
We've got Taylor.
Yes.
And we've got Zach.
And that's me.
Beautiful. Well, you toured here for the first time in around 10 years in 2012. 2 years later, Hanson are back in Australia. We couldn't be more excited. What brings you here so soon?
Well, first of all, trying to not break our promise to our fans. The privilege of having fans in different parts of the world is you have options to come and play and share music with them. But it's often hard to reach different places consistently. So Australia has always been a place where we've had been lucky to have a great fan base. And so we just tried to stay true to that. We said we'd come back, and this new album was one of the fastest kind of turnarounds in making a record and getting back on tour.
Mm-hmm.
So Anthem was always meant for a live show, so we got to bring the live show here.
When you arrived last time, most Australian audiences hadn't heard your 3 studio albums since this time around. But this time, with your new album, Anthem, are you confident that everyone's been brought up to speed and ready to rock?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know for absolute certain whether or not, every single person in the room has heard the record or not. But what I will say is that no matter whether you've heard, the first record and it's been a long time and you never even seen a show, or whether you've, fully caught up on all the latest stuff that Hanson's doing, the shows are designed to get you on your feet and having a good time. And ultimately, I think whether it's old stuff or new stuff, it all blends together really well and in a way that is a lot of fun for us to play. And so ultimately, I mean, last night when we played in Brisbane, it was a lot of fun, and the audience was totally off the hook, as Australian audiences tend to be. So it seems like it's going pretty well so far.
I think the other thing is, being a band for years and years now, 17 years since our first record that really hit in Australia, but 22 years since we started the band. You know that is a challenge that you have, the fact that people will connect with you, on some records and not on others. That over a career you might have fans that they only know your most recent 2 albums or your first album or some combination of any of that. And so we just look at it as a challenge and hopefully a way to say, well, let's make sure that every record stands up so that it kind of brings people into the fold, still fits within this tapestry of what Hanson sounds like.
Absolutely. And I'm Zach's age, and I've got to say, I've always been a huge fan. From the moment I heard Mbop when I was around 11, I was hooked that kind of kids like me were writing awesome songs and had such cool harmonies, through to my beautiful American friend when I was living in small town New Zealand, got copies of Underneath and The Walk sent over, which I would pretty much play everybody who had anything to say about Hanson, then being able to order the last couple of records off the internet, the 5 of 5 box set and all of that.
Wow.
But the one thing I always enjoyed and noticed in Australia throughout the 2000s was the one-hit wonder thing, the idea that Hanson were a kids band. How did you guys feel through the times when Hanson weren't quite considered cool?
Well, coolness is one of those things that it's so hard to even chase that, some of the best things that we've admired over the years are things that kind of come of age, and the only way you can prove that they're great is that they've lasted. And so I think what we've always tried to do is stick our heads down and focus on craft. And really that's that plus connecting with people, like you're talking about having bought the 5 of 5 box set.
It's so great.
That's fantastic. I mean,
Glad you like that.
people like you and others that have listened and followed. I mean, those are the folks that we try and say, well, hey, you're the insider. You're the ones that are making this possible. So connecting with those has really been our focus, and surviving time and having a body of work to look back on, and believing that, ultimately, if you're doing something that you love and you're dedicated to, then regardless of whether everyone in the room gets it, you can always go to bed going, hey, what we just created was fantastic and something I'm proud of.
This is a little bit of a darker analogy for what it is, but it's sort of like the way they say those who win the wars write the history books. And I think what Tay's saying is the bands that survive are the ones that people are able to look back on their whole career and make an informed statement about what kind of band they are. Those that give up because they don't like the article that was written about them or the thing
they're not cool enough anymore.
Some dude said are the ones that never get a chance to have someone reevaluate that statement and maybe change their mind.
And I also think that we were used to being underdogs. We've always felt like underdogs from the very, very beginning. I mean, whether it was when we were starting locally and, all the time, you would get tons of people who would say, "Oh, I love you." And they were mostly your peers. And then a lot of people who were older or shall we say, different perspective, different musical opinion than you would be constantly waiting and saying, "Oh, oh yeah, good luck, haha," kind of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so no matter whether it was that we were, at the top of the charts or whether we were, starting our own label or whether we were just barely getting started as local artists, it always kind of has felt that way. And I don't think we've ever been particularly worried about what other people thought. I think what we've been worried about is, as Taylor and Zach so eloquently said, focused on the music first and foremost.
If anybody wants to know how strong your band can be, I mean, just look at the Strong Enough to Break documentary about all the trials and tribulations that went into putting Underneath together. And I remember when I first heard that album, especially this song, Strong Enough to Break, I was like, wow, this sounds fresh and it sounds tight. It's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, that record, we jokingly call it the record that survived. Because, were it not for...
It's a Navy SEAL, actually.
Yeah, it is a Navy SEAL. And needless to say, it kind of it runs the gamut emotionally. It kind of has a lot of very upbeat pop type feelings to it. Very similar in some ways to songs off of, albums like Shout It Out and Anthem, which are more recent. But it really got into a more personal and emotional space with a lot of the more singer-songwriter oriented stuff.
Yeah, I think the thing you find, especially looking at that record, so Underneath was the third album that documentary was done about it. And I think you see that in that documentary, we made a lot of choices to say, well, this may be harder, but it's the way we're going to survive. And we tend to do that, I think. We find ourselves going, well, if this is the only way to make it happen, then we're willing to put in more hours and learn in the process. And you do make mistakes, but you can't be afraid, just the way you can't be afraid to write music, be worried about a genre. You also, with your business and with the band's career, have to go, okay, we have to innovate with this too.
Well, the new record is seeing you guys innovate a little bit. It's still got a classic Hanson sound, but it has a little bit more riffage. It's really big, and as you said, it was turned around quite quickly. Has it been fun to play live?
Yeah, Anthem really is a record designed for live. I mean, it has a lot more guitars. The record previous to this kind of depended on keyboards, a lot of piano. This one, riffs are dominant. You have more guitar. Just the first song.
Well,
of the
and
record.
even some of the more pop ones that would have otherwise on, like, for example, Shout It Out, the previous record, are still more guitar driven than they are piano driven, which is an interesting change.
So I think all these shows across the country in Australia are really kind of playing to the strengths of Anthem. So they lean on songs like Scream and Be Free or Fired Up or the single Get the Girl Back. They all kind of have these, places for the audience to engage. And it does highlight kind of our love of live music. And the other thing, too, is I think you were talking about sort of being a band and getting to this point. We're at 6 albums in. We've, done this for a long time, over 20 years. I think the record also taps into a theme of our band, which is sort of kind of surviving and living life to the fullest and sort of becoming, oftentimes when you listen to songs off our records, people go, oh, that's such an upbeat song, that's a sunny song. And so many of our songs are sort of positive despite what's actually being said in the lyric. And I think that's part of what
Optimistic, maybe.
Yeah, optimistic, like purposefully optimistic.
in the face of adversity.
So I think Anthem rings true in that level. It's an anthem. The title came from just the idea that songs, when they become anthems, they become songs that are, claimed by a group or an audience, and that's really kind of what you hope for when you write a song. Is that somebody takes ownership of it and it becomes bigger than yours.
Well, I hope you're playing You Can't Stop Us Now from Anthem on these shows, because I feel like that's a great anthem. That's a huge sing-along.
Yeah, no, it really is. You Can't Stop Us Now, which is definitely one of the most aggressive songs on a Hanson record, is certainly a focal point in the show. And has been embraced, by the whole, Hanson fan community in a really awesome way. And, they sing along, passionately with fists in the air and the whole 9 yards. And I think it's I think consistent again with a lot of our themes in our music, which is just, yeah, you're going to have hard times. Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but you know what? You're going to get through it.
It's part of our anger management regimen. Just sing this song. Don't hurt people. Okay.
Just sing this
turn
song.
this on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're letting your fans pick the set list for the Hi-Fi Bar gig in Sydney. Have
That's
you
right.
had to tightly rehearse everything in your catalogue?
You know what? We have rehearsed in the past at times.
chuckle.
There's
We've
been some
rehearsed
rehearsal.
once or twice,
Yeah. There's certain songs that are embedded into the fabric of our musical backdrop, but there's a lot of songs that we have had to polish up for this tour. I mean, the reason we put the set list voting up was we'd had multiple shows go up, and shows were selling really fast, so we added a couple markets, and we figured there are definitely fans that come to multiple concerts, and it's kind of a way of saying thank you for coming to multiple shows and putting it in their hands. So people can actually still cast votes for a couple of the shows that have voting. And, it'll make those shows special. We do have to polish the silver, so to speak, in a couple areas that, there's usually some dust on it. But there's a lot of songs that range the whole, Gamut of albums.
One thing I'm pretty proud of is my Hops glass.
Yes.
Are Aussie
Nice.
fans ever going to get the chance to try Hanson's signature beer?
We would love that to be true.
Yeah.
So Hops is a beer we launched last year. We launched a company to make Hanson beer.
Mm-hmm.
And though it is obviously kitschy, intended to be a pun and funny, we really do love beer and love the craft of beer. And so it's a honest to goodness, great tasting beer. It's called Hops.
We're working on distribution in different countries. In Australia, I mean, who we are as a band obviously goes naturally into who we can reach with beer. So we definitely have some interest, and we're working on bringing it to the country. But one thing that we've learned as we've started this thing is you really have to have a very long view, much like music, with something like a beer brand, because people identify with it. It's very personal, and there's a lot of legal things that go on with selling alcohol, believe it or not. So you have
complicated.
You have to really be dead set on being a part of it. And what is really
If
cool,
only it was as simple as us just like shipping cases places.
what is really great about the parallel of our musical career, and again, it kind of ties it back to everything we've been saying, is making the beer deal. Part of what people are getting excited about, I think, in that whole culture is there's craft. A lot of people, our generation and younger, they don't want to just drink a factory produced, and flavorless beer. They want to drink something that's like, hey, this is from my state or my community, and so it
They
has
want to
some
enjoy
identity.
a meal while they get drunk.
So I think with our band being an independent band, all the kind of the backdrop of what we do, it fits in. It kind of ties into the theme.
Absolutely. One of my favourite Australian bands, UMI, around the time you launched, Hops launched their own Brew MI through a local distributor
really?
as well.
Nice.
That's cool.
Was the same as I'm imagining Hops is. It was just fantastically kind of locally brewed beer, and it was awesome. I collected about 6 of the liter bottles.
There you go.
Great. That's great. Yeah, we also love. I think it says something about our band too, which we think is cool and a great connection. It just
We like to drink.
Yeah.
Wait, I mean,
Well,
it's
just
a
the
good
way
thing
it
you're in
reflects
Australia.
on the song, the title song. I think it puts things in nice perspective.
Mbop has technically come of age.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well, you guys are all married. I think have around 11 children between the three of you now. Very secure relationships. Do your wives sort of roll their eyes at the female attention you still get?
Well, you know what? It's interesting because we actually met all of our wives at shows, ironically. So I don't, and so I think in some ways I think that they kind of associated in a very positive sense of like, I was the one that got their attention and still has it very, very committedly.
We're all very lucky guys.
We're very lucky guys. They don't roll their eyes at it. I mean, they kind of they appreciate it because they know that we, that we are passionate about our music, and that's really the most important thing.
Connecting with your audience.
My wife's not worried at all. She knows she's got me wrapped around her finger.
Yeah, that's the right way to say it.
Zach, Taylor, Isaac, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Yeah,
Thanks a
great to
lot.
talk to you,
No worries.
and we'll hopefully see you at a show.
You will see me in Sydney.
Fantastic.
Glad to hear it.
Thanks
Look
a lot,
forward to
man.
seeing you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.